I've played a lot of PC games, from classic all the way to modern, and throughout time there's been some standout games that impressed me. That being said, I am a tough critic, and when you've played as wide of a variety of games from as wide of a time frame as I have, you'll get a mixed bag of recommendations from me, be it a text adventure from the 1980s to a recent indie game. You never know what I'll suggest. That being said, today we're going to talk about 10 more games you should check out on the PC. Let's begin. You know, there were tons of ways to get games. If you were lucky, they came with your Nintendo Power magazine, or you could rent them from Blockbuster or Hollywood Video. You could go to KB Toys, Funcoland, Babbage's, Electronics Boutique, or you could con your grandfather into buying you a cereal that you will totally, definitely eat and not throw away for the sole reason of getting a PC game. That's what happened with Chex Quest. My grandfather was not happy. But that idea wasn't limited to just Chex Quest. Quaker Oats also wanted to do the same thing with Captain Crunch, and they wanted it to be an educational game, and thus Crunchling Adventure was born. In the game, we raise a Crunchling from a simple Crunchling baby to a grown-ass man or woman Crunchling, and we send them off to take on the Crunchium Thief. And I know you're probably like, really, this is the game you're starting with? Yeah, why not? It's a good game. Would I say it's the best thing since Gary Busey checked into rehab? No, it's not, but for the demographic it's aimed at, I feel like it did a great job, and I don't mind that one bit. Obviously, it's not a long game, but it serves its purpose, and if you want something fun for your kids to enjoy, maybe check out this game. Tetris Classic is obviously quite important to me. After all, me and my grandmother just played it live the other day, and during the whole time we talked about just how important this game was to us throughout our lives. In fact, I didn't even realize I inspired her to play Tetris thanks to my Game Boy copy of it. That was something I learned from her while we were streaming. No matter what, I'll always associate Tetris with her, and nothing can change that. But this game in particular, in my opinion, is one of the best Tetris variations from that era. Prior to Tetris Classic, we had very slow attempts at putting Tetris on other consoles, and to me, the only other version that holds a candle against this one is Tetris on the Game Boy and the NES. There's really nothing I can say about this game other than the pieces are much larger than we would see in other versions where the pieces are small, and that's just something I've noticed playing all of them with my grandmother. This is a great entry-level Tetris, even though it does get mean quite fast. Got another edutainment game for you. This one is from my childhood, and I played it on stream. It's a simple game brought to us by the fine folks at The Learning Company, TLC, a company that had their software installed in schools across America, and in particular, I remember this in my first grade year. Going to the computer lab was one thing that I looked forward to, and it was rewarding to see it through as an adult. Basically, our whole job is to stop Morty Maxwell, a mad scientist, from using robots to paint the school invisible. This occurs at midnight, so we are in a time crunch to go through each room. We answer trivia, we unlock hints to a cipher. That cipher is used to unlock whatever room he is in. To discover what room he is in, we need to take on the robots in the hallway, who we can take pictures of that narrow down exactly what room he's in. With cipher and room ID in hand, you go there, unlock the door, and you win. It's a simple game that keeps track of your scores, so in some ways there was always a scoreboard for me and my peers to brag about. It's a fun game, and it might be fun for your kids as well. Usually when I play games, I play them in order, and Counter-Strike is one of those games where I didn't even know it existed as a previous release. I thought it was always Counter-Strike Source, but apparently it's a remake of an older Counter-Strike from 2000. Again, it's the only version I've ever played, and it's pretty simple. It's a team-based tactical first-person shooter where the terrorists and counter-terrorists fulfill their objectives. I'm personally a fan of deathmatch or gun game because a vast majority of the fun from Counter-Strike stems from the off-the-wall servers, be it role-playing, gun game, hide-and-seek, or if you wanted to tackle the traditional modes, then hell yeah, do that. One of the things I enjoyed about Counter-Strike is that it takes into consideration how accuracy drops if you move and how recoil comes into play with firearms, which is something most first-person shooters seem to get wrong. I know it may be more satisfying just to run around and hold down a machine gun and take people out, but Counter-Strike does implement that, and also for shits and giggles they programmed distance differentials for damage, which is always nice. What is that? If you're farther away, less damage. Close up, destroy him. Counter-Strike as a franchise still exists, with the most recent being Counter-Strike 2 in 2023, but I haven't taken the time to play it yet. Do you like Doom? I like Doom. I like Doom a lot. So much that I'm open to modifying Doom to be even better than it was yesterday. WODs and mods are so cool. When people take the time to improve or implement some weird storyline or modification for the engine, it's a bastion of different experiences, and Trailblazer is exactly that. Trailblazer to me though is Doom easy mode because the guy we play is a total badass. His firearms decimate the demons, and his machete is eons better than Doom guy's fists. But that's not where it stops. We can go around and pick up junk and scrap and modify our weapon to become even more epic. If we upgrade the machete, eventually it will shoot shockwaves that just rip the enemies apart. Or the pistol with its damage and laser sight upgrade. What about the shotguns? Well, how about a third barrel? Akimbo 3-barrel shotguns. That's what Trailblazer is all about, and if you enjoy Doom mods, this is right up your alley. Do yourself a favor, grab GZ Doom and this mod. I'll put both in the description down below. This is one of the earliest games I played from Sierra. Sierra as a company had this awesome niche of employing people who knew how to translate what we were curious about and put that in an adventure game format. For many, it might be a thief, an astronaut, a king, or a police officer. Many of these games were named Quest, so you'll see Quest for Glory, King's Quest, Space Quest, or just Police Quest. Now, this is the earliest game in the Police Quest lineage, the newest being SWAT Elite Troops, which is dog shit because it was on the phone. But prior to that, it was SWAT Target Liberty, which was dog shit because it was on the PSP. And prior to that, it was SWAT Force, which was dog shit because it was on the phone. And prior to that, it was SWAT 4, which sucked, but at least it felt like a SWAT game. Now, if we go back to Police Quest 1, we play as Sonny Bonds from the Lighton Police Department, who's going after Jesse Baines, also known as the Death Angel. He's a drug dealer, and his actions are causing deaths all across the city. I know some people might feel this game is shitty because A, it's old school EGA, and B, it has a text parser, but this game did receive a VGA remake, which was something Sierra did occasionally, but oftentimes only for the first game in a series. If you want a more modern version, try the VGA version, but I do challenge you to play the native EGA version because the text parser paved the way for modern adventure games. And in some ways, at least to me, it lets you have this slight investment in the action by telling Sonny exactly what to do. Horror games are always hit or miss for me, and during the spooky October month I did a while back, my good friend Divine Shadow 18 decided to grace me with a short game that stemmed from a game jam, Death Flush. The game jam it stems from is the haunted PS1 summer of Screams, so it has that vocal and visual aesthetic of a PlayStation 1 game. It's roughly 20 minutes long, but it revolves around this guy named Ronnie, whose grandfather was killed by a serial killer, but not just any serial killer, the toilet seat serial killer, known for killing people with his sharpened toilet seat. Because of this, Ronnie is terrified of peeing alone because at any point that evil man could show up. There's puzzles, fighting, tons of puns to enjoy. It's a stupid game, but it's a good stupid, if that makes sense. I'll link it down below as well. Real-time strategy games have always been hit or miss for me, especially lately. I figured by loving Warhammer 40k Dawn of War and StarCraft that maybe, just maybe, I'd enjoy going back and playing Command & Conquer as well as the original Warcraft, but that wasn't the case. There was a slight time frame where I was just bummed out to play RTS games because, let's be honest, I'm bad at them. I'm not afraid to say that, my brain just doesn't work in a tactical way. But that went out the door with Uprising Join or Die. I didn't know what to expect from it. From the screenshots, it looked like Battlezone or just another tank simulator. In some ways, it was. But we have the ability to manage units and build buildings. It's literally a tank RTS. So how does it work? We play as a young dude from Caliban who pilots a Wraith. The Wraith is a tank in and of itself, but it has the ability to warp in citadels. The citadels that we call in are the tower unit that we claim, which requires power, so we call in power stations. With that, we can call in barracks, air support, or tank factories, which allow us to spawn at will, mind you, units as we see fit. Meaning that if I'm in the heat of battle and some tank pops up, I can just push joystick 2 and boom, I've manifested a tank. Now the reason I quit playing this game was because it was physically hurting me. I am disabled, and repetitive motion on the wrist to me, to the capacity that it demanded, was not something that I was physically able to do. But I do recommend this game, and I'm sure it could be played without a joystick, but the spread of the commands for the game on the keyboard kind of demands a joystick. I don't think it'd be as fun without it. Remember how I mentioned Sierra was all about their quest games? This is the sequel to another one, Space Quest. Space Quest is all about this grade A goofball named Roger Wilco, an intergalactic janitor that constantly finds himself saving the world by simply being in the right place at the right time. His actions in the first game involved taking down a galactic menace, and in the sequel, we're doing the same thing. Roger's cleaning up a mess, as is his sole duty, and he gets knocked out and put in a prison located at the Labion labor mines. And through the course of the game, we discover that Sludge Vohal's interference in the galaxy was much more than we thought. So let's ruin that plan. And we do that. It's a really quick, easy, cheesy game, even though some of the puzzles and parser requirements can be finicky. But that's the silver lining for that era of gaming. You never know what's going to work and what isn't. Diablo 1 was an experience, very much an experience, one in patience, one in aggravation, one in dedication and perseverance. We had to go through non-stop floors, leveling up, trying to do our best, before doing it all again with the same stats, before mentally committing to taking out Big Dick Daddy Diablo. Diablo alone was a massively successful game and people looked forward to Diablo 2, but I don't think they expected what came their way. From a simple dungeon crawler came one of the most successful action role-playing games of all time. Instead of one dungeon instance, we had procedurally generated dungeons, we had new classes too. The Amazon, the Necromancer, the Barbarian, the Sorceress, and the Paladin. We could travel the world courtesy of different acts and take out incredibly powerful enemies. We could hire mercenaries, or hirelings technically, to come with us on our journey. And through, this game was epic, and it's even better with friends. Now, if you haven't played the original Diablo, it has quite an interesting ending, one that I won't spoil, but the guy or girl from the first game is relevant in the second game, and the decisions they made at the end of the first game are causing shockwaves across Sanctuary. So we head off again to find our old friend
Deckard Cain, fresh from being imprisoned yet again. It's a problem, I know. Don't worry, it won't be much longer. Oh, classic foreshadowing. Got to love it. But hey, why don't you stay a while and listen?
We run into legendary characters like Bale and Mephisto, and who knows, maybe we'll run into Big Daddy Diablo again. I do want to give a massive shout out to Blizzard for stopping their sexual harassment of their employees long enough to release an update to this. Diablo II Resurrected, which is the same game with massive visual upgrades. I know it might not seem like much, but if you change between the original and the upgraded graphics, you'll see that it's day and night. It's so strange how we perceive graphical standards throughout our lives. It truly is. And that's it for today's list. What did you think of it? Did you play any of these games? And if so, how'd you feel about it? Feel free to let the community know down in the comments below. Speaking of our community, if you made it to the end of this video, you're already home with us. We're a group of gaming enthusiasts that love remembering a time when life was just a little bit easier to live, and we are actively working towards a major milestone of 8,000 subscribers. If we accomplish that, I'll do a special video of the community's choice. Finally, the single most important thing you can do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly impacts the visibility of the videos and the projects that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes, Fortefyre out.